She had always sworn she would never marry. From the moment she could think for herself, the expectations of her people had felt like chains she could never break. The alien world of Litherus, with its violet skies and sprawling crystal forests, had always been a place of rigid tradition. Marriages were not just unions of hearts, they were alliances of power, strategy, and duty. And she, a princess of the Arinthian line, had watched countless weddings dissolve into political games that left the participants empty and hollow. She had seen sisters and cousins, brilliant and fierce, reduced to shadows of themselves because they had traded freedom for the gilded cage of matrimony. Her name was Leora, and she carried herself with the quiet strength of someone who had spent years defending the autonomy. She refused to surrender. Her eyes, a pale lavender that mirrored the morning mist over the crystal forests, often betrayed her impatience. Every royal gathering, every ceremony, every council meeting, it was all a parade of suitors with their polished words and practiced smiles. Leora met each one with polite dismissal, a grace that hid the steel of her resolve. None had ever tempted her, none could. Then the humans arrived. They had come silently, almost unnoticed at the edge of the Litherus system. Their ship was nothing like the vast, glittering vessels of the Arinthian fleet. It was smaller, boxy, utilitarian, but it moved with a strange kind of purpose, slicing through space with a speed that left even veteran navigators impressed. The council had debated long hours over whether to greet them, to observe them from afar, to prepare defenses just in case. Humans were known across the quadrant as unpredictable, aggressive when cornered, ingenious when desperate. Their reputation alone demanded caution, but curiosity, ever dangerous, drew Leora toward them. She was not just a princess, she was also a diplomat, trained to understand and negotiate with strangers. Still, she did not expect what she found when she first set foot on their ship. The human who greeted her was tall by her standards, broad-shouldered, with skin that glowed warmly in the artificial light of the human vessel. His eyes were a strange, clear shade of green that seemed to see everything and yet reveal nothing. There was a calmness about him that contrasted sharply with the frenetic energy of his ship, which hummed and blinked with lights and sounds utterly foreign to Litherian senses. He introduced himself simply. Callan did not bow or offer the ceremonial gestures that Litherians expected. He extended a hand in a human way, and when she hesitated, he smiled. There was no arrogance in it, no attempt to dominate or impress. It was just simple, genuine. That simplicity, Leora realized, was unsettling. For centuries her people had measured worth by status, lineage, or skill in court intrigue, and yet here was a being who measured nothing but presence. Their first conversation was cautious, polite, diplomatic. Leora had prepared herself to probe, to extract knowledge, to test his intentions. But Callan asked questions instead of answering them. Not about politics or resources, but about life, her life. The forested cities of Litherus, the music she loved, the moments she cherished. Each question was a key, gently unlocking the parts of her she had hidden even from herself. Days passed. Leora found herself returning to the human ship more often than protocol demanded. The council grew anxious. Whispers of impropriety circulated in the corridors of her palace. Yet Leora did not care. She was learning something her people rarely taught. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but they were also capable of a courage and kindness that transcended political ambition. Callan showed her his world through stories, sketches, and holograms. He spoke of human cities where millions lived side by side in chaos and beauty, of mountains that touched the clouds, of oceans vast enough to swallow continents. He spoke of failures, of battles lost, and of lives rebuilt. He spoke of something Leora had rarely encountered among her own kind, hope that was active, not inherited. One evening, while they walked through the bioluminescent gardens that grew inside the human ship, engineers had insisted on creating some greenery to ease the strain of long voyages. Leora realized she had been laughing, truly laughing, without restraint, for the first time in decades. Callan had told a clumsy story of attempting to fish in a zero-gravity environment, and she had doubled over, tears forming at the corners of her eyes. "I never thought I would find this joy," she admitted softly, her voice almost lost beneath the hum of the ship's engines. "I never imagined someone could make me forget the weight of expectations." Callan looked at her, his expression thoughtful. "Sometimes the weight is ours to release, not to carry forever." The words resonated deeper than any royal decree or philosophical teaching she had ever heard. It was not flattery. It was not persuasion. It was truth. And in that moment, something shifted in Leora. She understood that the life she had sworn to protect, the freedom she had clung to like a shield, could coexist with this strange new possibility. She did not have to surrender herself to a gilded cage. She could choose, for once, for herself. Months passed, and the humans became an integral, almost invisible part of Litherus society. Callan worked alongside Leora and her people, not as a conqueror but as a partner. He shared technology that helped their cities withstand storms, strategies that improved agriculture, even humor that softened the often harsh councils. Slowly, the whispers changed from suspicion to admiration. The Arinthians, so long bound by tradition, began to see the potential of choice, of connection, of love that was unburdened by duty. Leora, however, remained cautious. She was still a princess, still a leader, still someone who had sworn never to marry. But Callan had introduced her to a human concept that did not exist in her world: partnership. It was not ownership, nor alliance, nor duty. It was mutual respect and choice. One evening, after a particularly long meeting discussing trade routes with neighboring systems, Callan found her alone on the observation deck. The Litherian moon reflected off her lavender eyes, and the crystal forests below shimmered like a tapestry of light. She seemed smaller here, more vulnerable, and yet infinitely more alive. "Leora," he said quietly, stepping close. "There is something I need to tell you." She turned, eyes steady, heart racing. "What is it?" "I cannot promise you perfection. Humans are messy, flawed, prone to mistakes. But I can promise you this: I will not demand your freedom. I will not ask you to be anyone but yourself. I will stand by you, through anything, as an equal, as a partner, as someone who cares for you." Leora's breath caught. She had expected declarations of love filled with poetry and ritual, but this was different. It was grounded, real, honest. She realized that for centuries she had been listening to empty words, to rituals designed to control, and here was a human, offering her a choice. "Callan," she whispered, the name feeling foreign and right on her tongue. "I swore I would never marry, but she hesitated, searching for the words that could express what she felt. "I did not know I could feel this way about someone. I did not know I could trust someone completely." He smiled, gently. "Do not marry me out of obligation, tradition, or expectation. Marry me because you choose to. That is all I ask." For the first time, Leora felt the chains she had carried for her entire life loosen. The fear of losing autonomy, of being trapped in a role she had never wanted, began to fade. She could feel it. This was not just attraction or infatuation. It was respect. It was partnership. It was love that did not demand sacrifice but offered freedom. "I choose," she said finally, her voice steady and full of quiet power. "I choose to stand with you." Callan reached for her hand, their fingers intertwining in a gesture both simple and profound. The stars outside the observation deck seemed to shine brighter, as if the universe itself recognized the choice made not from duty, but from the heart. When the council learned of Leora's decision, there was initial shock, even outrage. A princess who had sworn to reject marriage, choosing a human, it defied generations of expectation. But Leora did not waver. She addressed her people with the clarity and conviction that had always defined her. "I am still the same leader, the same Arinthian, but I am also allowed to choose my path. I have chosen someone who respects that path, and together we will forge a future that honors freedom, choice, and partnership." Slowly, grudging respect turned into acceptance. The people saw the truth in her words, saw the strength in her choice, saw that love could be a force that empowered rather than constrained. And in that moment Leora understood something profound. Marriage was not a trap, not a chain, not a duty to others. It could be a partnership, a shared journey, a bond formed by choice, not obligation. Years later, the story of Leora and Callan became legend, not for the wealth, the power, or the battles they had fought, but for the example they set. A Litherian princess who had once sworn never to marry, choosing a human not because of duty but because of love and respect. Theirs was a bond that inspired change, broke tradition, and redefined what it meant to lead. And Leora, once a woman who feared losing herself, discovered that true freedom was not in rejecting connection, but in choosing it wisely. She married not to comply, not to satisfy expectation, but to embrace a partnership that celebrated strength, choice, and the unpredictable, wonderful nature of life itself in the quiet moments beneath the violet skies of Lith. She would often look at Callan and remember the day she had laughed so freely, the day she realized her heart was no longer bound by fear or tradition. And she would smile, knowing that sometimes the greatest courage was not in defiance, but in opening oneself fully to the unexpected, the human, and the extraordinary. For Leora, the princess who had sworn she would never marry, the arrival of a human had changed everything, not through force, or persuasion, or ceremony, but through simple, undeniable truth. Choice, respect, and love could coexist, and in that coexistence, she found the freedom she had sought all her life.